Hello, Mercia. So you are here at the School of the Ecology and you represent the Women Rurals Assembly. Can you just tell us a bit more about your organization?
So the Rural Women's Assembly is a Southern African movement. I'm from South Africa, and so I come into the movement from South Africa, but at the moment we exist in 9 countries in Southern Africa. We are trying to build an association here in Mauritius as well. Most of the members are small-scale farmers, fishers, forest people living, women in the forest, as well as farm workers. So the women are mostly associated very closely with livelihoods that's related to the commons and to land, etc. The movement is quite young, and it's an autonomous movement where women organize themselves, so there's a lot of self-organization. We don't belong to a political organization, but we are political. So we're not party political, but we're very political, and women are involved in different kinds of initiatives and so on. So that's in a nutshell a little bit about us.
And yesterday you talked a lot about the place of women in the struggle for protecting the environment, and you used a lot of the word ecofeminism. Can you tell us more about it?
So, as I said, because the women are mainly members of associations that's based on accessing land, accessing their livelihoods from the ocean, etc., the question of the climate and the environment is very central. It's not separate. And so for us in the Rural Women's Assembly, we have a strong view that we are part of nature. We are not separate from nature. But we also make quite a strong criticism about the way in which capitalism has exploited nature, and we make a parallel between the exploitation of women's bodies, women's labor, women's reproductive rights and so on, and the way nature is exploited. And that's how we make the parallel. We use the example of Mother Earth, and people say Mother Earth has bounty. She should give to us. We should exploit what she gives to us, etc. And you can see this linkage between the mother who must give, the mother who must feed, the mother who must always provide. But there isn't, what can we give back to mother? So we make that as a parallel, and we say you can see from that analogy that there is the same exploitation of women. And we say we also want women to see that their body is territory. It is their territory. And therefore we've introduced in this last period also the notion of the right to say no. So the right to say no is not simply about the right to say no to sex, or no to domestic violence, or no to rape, or no to abuse, no to genital mutilation and all these abuses of women, but it's also the right to say no to how our land is being used, or how the ocean is being destroyed, etc. So we make this analogy of territory between our bodies and between nature. And this is where this idea of ecological consciousness and a feminist consciousness is brought together. But we try to go further and say that we must also see the overlap and the linkage between patriarchy and capitalism. And therefore we must see the system as structural. So we want to go beyond simply an ecofeminist perspective. We also say that we must fight the system, the capitalist system that exploits poor people, women, poor women, etc., and nature, and so on. Yeah.
And it is, how to put this, for women in the fight to protect nature and the environment, the struggle is bigger because first they need to empower themselves and they need to fight patriarchy. So the relation of women with this fight is really different, if I may say.
This is, I think, is why we try to make the linkages all the time, so that people don't see it as separate struggles, but they see the intersectionality. They see the intersectionality between their poverty and the poverty and the inequality and the lack of land is all linked to the capitalist system. And the fact that men have control over the land is part of how patriarchy, how they exist within the household, how their labor, the care work that they do is exploited and so on. We make the linkage, and that is where there is an intersectionality between patriarchy and capitalism, and that's where we also bring in the question of nature. But we say also, given our colonial history in Southern Africa, that we also have to bring in the question of race as a critical issue. So in much of South Africa or much of the region, it is the wealth is owned by a very small elite, by a very small minority, and often they are, in South Africa for example, they are those who dispossessed us historically. So it is white South Africans, men in particular, who own the corporations, who own much of the land and so on. So that's where we use the concept of intersectionality as a methodology of getting people to understand the links between these things.
Okay. And if you had a message to women of the world, one single message?
I think we must organize. We must organize ourselves because we are our own liberators. No man is going to organize and liberate us. It's our task, it's our responsibility. So we must organize and organize to fight for a better world for our children and for the future.
Thank you, Mercia.
Thank
You're
you.
wonderful.
Good.